You're listening to Chicago Stories, a podcast from City Hall featuring the stories of everyday Chicagoans and special guests, as told to Mayor Emanuel.
This is Mayor Emanuel. We're here with Chicago Stories with Speaker Nancy Pelosi, my friend and the Speaker of the House.
It's an absolute delight to be here with you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Madam Speaker, it's great to see you. Now, I know your biography, but your house growing up in Baltimore was an open house.
Yes.
And what did you mean by an open house?
It was an open house because it was all the fact that we believe, my parents instilled in us that public service was a noble calling, and that those of us who were engaged in it and their families had to be open to the public. And so people would come knocking on our door for anything. That I knew as a little girl, just from listening to my mom, knew how to tell a person where to go to get a place in the projects, a bed in City Hospital, or one thing or another. People just didn't know
whatever
how
they
to
needed.
access.
They came to the front door.
They came to the front door, even if they were just hungry.
Little history. You have an open congressional seat and an open mayoralty in San Francisco. Here you are, the daughter of a mayor, but also who had been a congressman. How did you pick Congress versus the mayor of San Francisco? And was that ever a lure for you in your past?
No, I had no intention of running for any office, ever. I was chair of the California Democratic Party.
Same thing I said to Amy. See how it's worked for both of us.
No, but I really didn't. Actually, I was, unlike you, I was on the shy side. So I liked being in the background. I was chair of the California Democratic Party. I loved advancing candidates and organizing at the grassroots level and connecting people to our values and causes and candidates of the Democratic Party. But I had no ever any intention of running. And then our congresswoman took ill, and she said to me, "You have to run for my seat. I don't want you to run for mayor. I know people are asking you to run for mayor." I said, "I'm not even interested in running for anything." I have still one child at home. 4 of our kids were in college already. Still had Alexandra at home. She was going to be a senior in high school. And I said, I have responsibilities. But I went to Alexandra, said, "Alexandra, Mommy has a chance to run for Congress." Sol is encouraging me to do that. I don't know if I'll win, but she is insisting that I at least look at it. What do you think? I love
How old is she now when you're talking to her at this point?
16.
Right.
She was young for going into senior year. I said, so here's what it would entail. I would be gone like 3 nights a week to D.C.
A senior in high school, she's going, yeah.
So I said, so I love my life. Any answer is right. If you want me to stay here with you, I'm happy to do that. Otherwise, I'll be going 3 nights a week. She and my husband, Paul, they're 2 peas in a pod. They have a lot in common. They're very close. So she said, mother, not mommy, mother, get a life. What teenage girl would not like her mother out of the house 3 nights a week? Just as you said, Mr. Mayor, you knew.
I have 2 of those. Don't you? You kidding? Definitely go out there. Yeah.
So anyway, it was a mystery to me that I never would have suspected that I would run for office.
No, I know the story. Lyndon Johnson walks in and he knows where he's going. When you got to Congress, did you ever think that you'd have the gavel? Was that a goal?
No, absolutely not. I loved, the reason I ran is people whose advice I valued said, you love the issues. Now you can go do something about policy. You will like that. In other words, the reason you're involved in the Democratic Party is for what you believe in. And so for a long time when I was there, it was Appropriations Committee and Intelligence Committee. They were the 2 places I was forged. And I drank deeply of that, just as much knowledge about how the policy and the process as to how it worked to win, to prevail. And so that I loved. And then people asked me to run for leadership, and same thing as with, I said, I'm not doing that, even much earlier than when I did. And then I got tired of losing. We lost in 94, 96, 98. And so in 2000, I said, I'm going to take over California. And that year we went from 26 Democrats, 26 Republicans to 31 Democrats, 21 Republicans. And then that took us on a path which you led in 2006 for us to win the House.
All right, this is a cheap question, but it's my podcast. I can do what I want. You were whip?
Whip, leader, speaker.
How come never the DCCC?
They never asked me.
Never.
They never asked me. I would have been good at it.
Yes, you would have.
But I think that
I kind of know something about that, John.
Yeah, I know. You know the
But
most.
never in that leadership, that never from fundraising to politics to campaigns to organizing.
Quite frankly, you won't tell anybody I told you this,
No,
right?
this one, yeah. Yeah, we'll edit it out, yeah. The boys did not want a girl.
They did not
right.
want me in there. And then when I ran for leader,
they didn't want you near the money and the power.
They said, well, they knew I could raise a lot of money. They were always asking me to do that, but they never would give me any say. And that's why I said in 2000 I took over. In fact, people said, well, if you want to be in leadership, how come you turned down the DCCC? I said, they never offered me anything. They never wanted me there. However, when I did run for a whip, they said, who said she could run? Who said she could run? And then they said, well, she has a lot of supporters, and many of the women want her to run. And they said, well, why don't the women just make a list of all the things they want done, and we'll do it for them. Imagine that. This is 2001. But the last thing I could ever ask anybody to do is vote for me because I was a woman. That would have been deadly.
We know each other obviously very well. I know you as a appropriator in TEL. I've seen you in all the issues. Do you find being speaker that it's frustrating, it's less time on issues and more time kind of organizing around the House, et cetera, that you don't really, the farther you get away from legislating, or do you consider yourself still that intimately involved?
Oh, no. I think that the reason that I can do the job I do is because I stay immersed in the policy. Yeah, that's our purpose. That's our purpose. And I know a lot, because at the beginning I really dug deeply into what I was doing. I have a really good foundation. I say that immodestly, but that strengthens my hand a lot.
You've seen President Trump now going on our third year. We both know this. The job ends up changing a person. Do you think the job's changed him?
Unfortunately, not. I thought that it might.
Yeah, that it would have its own
some
kind
growth.
of. Yeah, nothing.
No, actually, it's really an unusual situation because I just
no maturation there, no kind of alteration of the responsibility,
no acquiring of knowledge, no, nothing.
The other thing is.
It's sad. By the way, as the President of the United States, I pray for him. I hope that he would open his heart to goodwill to man and women and children, and that he would be inspired by something. But no, that hasn't happened.
I used to say to President Clinton, and also President Obama, if we knew in the first year of the first term what we knew by the first year of the second term, the presidencies would be different. But you've seen him up close, and you've seen no better appreciation of the office, better appreciation or change in the way it's altered him about the responsibilities that come with it.
Maybe even getting worse.
Maybe even getting worse.
Worse, yeah. In other words, with one would think with the institutional responsibility, with historic opportunity that is there, President of the United States, that there might be some enhancement of your understanding of what that office is. This is an aberration. It's a very unusual situation.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think it's aberration, or do you think this is the new moment in time, given what you see a cricket player in Pakistan, you see other people, people out of entertainment, different non-traditional political courses. Do you think this is a short window, or do you think this is something that we may be going through for a while?
Well, and I'm just speaking about our own country, and I see what's going on in the rest of the world. But I do think this. Since you use the time reference, our founders said, the times have found us. And then Lincoln knew that the times had found him. And we know that the times have found us, not to put ourselves in the league category of our founders or Lincoln, but the urgency of the situation that we are in demands that we put aside everything, politics, Democrats, Republicans, just be patriotic and save our country. So I do think here he is an aberration, and in fact such an aberration that when you hit rock bottom, the only place you can go is up, and we have to take advantage of that.
Do you think the Republican Party will snap back to something that we grew up knowing?
I hope so. I say to our Republican friends, and you have many, I know, take back your party. you have been hijacked. This isn't who you are. But I would say that the Republicans...
You ever think you would yearn for the days of George Bush?
No. Well,
the normalcy of Dick Cheney?
No, not Dick Cheney. I wouldn't yearn for that.
I knew that was
a bridge
too far.
There. But I always had a good rapport with the Bushes, father and son, and Barbara Bush and Laura Bush, because they respected governance. And so while you have your disagreements on issues, and that's what our founders foresaw, that we would have differences of opinion. Otherwise, we could have a monarch and everybody, we could just all stay home or something. But this is different, and I do think that the Republicans in Congress are a congressional manifestation of the Trump policies. That's why they don't complain about him. But I do think the Republicans in the country are another matter.
So given that you and I have the same view about him being an aberration, how do you balance between the investigatory oversight responsibilities and the legislative, and one drowning out, which I would say is happening now, the other one? How do you get that equilibrium so people see what we as a party ran on in 2018 doesn't get lost, doesn't get drowned out by obviously all the appropriate commotions around Mueller, Barr, and the documents and what happened? Well,
obviously that's the balance that we have to have. However, the most important thing we can do is get results for the American people. We promised an agenda for the people: lower health care costs by lowering the cost of prescription drugs and preserving the pre-existing condition as a benefit. Building paychecks, lower healthcare costs, bigger paychecks by building infrastructure of America in a green and futuristic way. And 3, cleaner government by reducing the role of dark special interest money in politics and enhancing the voice of small donors and passing.
But do you think you can get heard, Nancy, given how much energy is around there?
Well, that's how we won the election in 2018. We stuck with our message. And we have other exuberances in our party.
Yeah, I've noticed.
But in the districts that we have to win, and where we have to win the White House, it has to be what we have in common. Again, e pluribus unum, from many, one. The one that we are as a country. So we have a constitutional responsibility to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. And the Russians try to disrupt our democracy. The executive branch is trying to brush that off. We'll fight them on that. But in our day-to-day, in our districts, in our town hall meetings, in our presence in the districts of our members, the issues are about their kitchen table issues. While the national press may want to play up the rest of it, it is at home what matters at the homes of our constituents. And so that's where we'll be. Now, people say to me, how can you go talk to him about infrastructure when they won't give us the information, the Mueller report? And I say, but I have to. If we think that there's a way that we can build the infrastructure of our country working in a bipartisan way, we have that responsibility. We can handle it. We can also make sure that the Constitution is respected.
I look at what he's doing, and I have a theory that he's trying to goad us to impeach him.
Oh, sure.
You're
absolutely right.
He wants us. The whole refusal is about daring us to do what. I mean, at least I agree, and I've seen what you said. That politically would be fraught with risk, and I think his entire obstruction is about goading us into that action.
Yeah, well, that's why I say...
Not just because he doesn't want you to have the information.
No, well, that's about power.
No,
it's all about power. But that's why I have said, when people keep after me on the impeachment, he's not worth it. He's not worth it, because he wants us to go to that place so that we're not focusing on whatever else. But
have you considered censuring as opposed to impeachment?
No, censuring to me is a weak. It's weak. It's nothing. If you think he should be
impeach
him. But the fact is that, as I've said about Barr, impeachment's too good for Barr. These people have to pay a price, not get rejected by the House of Representatives and then get cleared by the Senate so that they can go around. But what's sad about Barr is he's the Attorney General of the United States. He's not an elected public figure like Trump, and so he has that, shall we say, I don't want to call it imprimatur, but at least he
has an authority. That's
okay.
Right.
And he
for a nation of laws.
He shouldn't lie either.
Right.
But for the Attorney General, the highest law enforcement officer of the land, to lie to Congress about Russians disrupting our election. This is awful. I mean, this really. Now, understand this about Barr. He did this with George Bush before, Elliot Abrams, others that he saved from impeachment or other punishment at that time. But now, as I watched him, I kept watching his testimony over and over again. He's not just a toady for Trump. He's a toady for the special interest. The same day he was misrepresenting to Congress last Wednesday was the day they were doubling down on their lawsuit against the Affordable Care Act in court. Right. The next day we passed our Climate Change Action Now legislation. The president was undermining the Obama administration regulations on drilling. So they're doing a terrible agenda against health care, against clean air.
All the things that we believe in.
And people are paying attention to where's the Mueller report. So it's a diversionary tactic as well as a goading tactic.
Yeah. Well, I think he's goading because he's daring us to do what we know.
He's just messing with the wrong person.
Well, some of us know a D'Alessandro versus a Pelosi, and we've always said that. Let me ask you this question. 3 members have gotten like 90% of the coverage of the new class. If you were to spot, without picking among your children, say, here are 5, 6, 7, whatever you want, people to watch. These are comers coming down the road. You haven't heard of them, but they're as smart and as possible.
You think I would choose them right here on this show? Listen, let me just say, this class is a fabulous class.
I actually think it's one of the best. I'm serious. It's a great class.
They're so fabulous, and what's wonderful about them is they have diversity. Whether they are from the military, whether they're from the academic world, whether they're from the business community, whether they're from state legislatures, whether they've never ever been participating in public life at all before, they are just ready. And I say to them, our diversity is our strength. Our unity is our power.
You haven't changed since 06. I don't know if you know that. You used to say that in 06.
But it is true. You can't just brag about the diversity if it's not going to be there for a purpose. And we know our purpose. It is to be there for America's working. People give me credit from time to time for being a unifier in the caucus. I said, I'm not. Our values unify us. And our main priority, our imperative, is to be there for America's working families, for our children, their health, their education, the economic security of their families, a safe, clean environment for them to succeed, a world at peace in which they can reach their fulfillment. It's all about the future.
You and I love politics, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Those are our unifying values. You've talked about a center left.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that coming out of the presidential so far is that the Democratic primary voters are much more pragmatic than those who make. I always say sometimes sound is not fury. Those
I love
on
it.
yeah, you can borrow it.
I love it. So I'll use that.
Yes.
First time I'll give you credit.
Yeah, then steal it afterwards, okay? Yeah, it's kind of like never allow a good crisis to go to waste.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. But here's my thing, is that what people are discovering is their number one ideological goal is winning. They don't care about shades about Medicare for all versus this health. They just want to win because they know that this guy's dangerous. Yet we have a lot of people making noise who seem to think that they're representing a larger share of the vote. Yeah. So how do we get the party to understand that there's a much more pragmatic voter that is not just a sliver, is actually north of 50% of the primary voters? How do we get that to become and also the press to understand that's the frame? Yeah. They are paying way too much attention to people who, as I always say, sound is not always fury in politics.
Good for you. Well, the press, some of the people in the press have told me that the press just has a twitch. They have to talk about division in the Democratic Party. It's sort of just the way it is.
Well, they talk about our divisions as much as they talk about their corruption. Those are the paradigms.
Yeah, but there is no equivalence in terms of the divisions that exist in the Republican Party versus the, shall we say, diversity that we have in ours. Remember this. I mean, look, in the Congress, there are 115 women. 91 of them are Democrats because we made a decision. You were part of that decision to increase the number of women in Congress every time. 91 and now, of course, I still want more.
Right.
I want 100 by the next election. But so when you have this diversity in terms of experience, generational, gender identity, ethnicity, so many different
Diversity
divisions.
does not mean division.
Yeah, thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
So in any case, again, I would never point out, I would say we have many excellent freshmen who are, every time the freshman class comes, and you know this from your own experience, we'd stand back there, but you were never there that long to be as long as I'm. Some of us would stand back there and say, here they come, the fresh recruits. Who among them will be a leader in this Congress, run for other office, perhaps be president of the United States? You see all of that possibility there. So when we're talking now about the presidential and the rest, you're exactly right. Our members understand that we have to win because they see on a daily basis what the Republicans would do to children in need, take children out of the arms of their parents and the rest. So they don't need any message on that in the Congress. You're absolutely right. Around the country, people, you have to give Trump credit for this. People say you have a good thing to say about him. He's one of our best organizers, fundraisers, and mobilizers and recruiters of candidates that we've had in a long time.
He's contributed one thing to politics, a new civic engagement.
Yeah.
You and I dealt in a period of time in politics where people were disengaged, and we worked tirelessly to get him engaged. He's actually gotten a level of engagement that I never thought was possible.
The Times have found us because of him. The Times found the women, and they marched, and then they ran, and then they voted, and now they serve in Congress and other places throughout the country. So he has done just that. And even at his State of the Union address, he wanted to take credit for the number of women who were in Congress.
Yeah, well,
maybe so.
I think it's a bit more of a bank shot than a direct shot. Let me ask, when you look at the infrastructure bill, do you think you can get him to move McConnell? Because that's the divisions that exist. You do.
Yeah, as long as he's paid for. I mean, I was in the room when he said to McConnell, how can we do a $1 trillion infrastructure bill? And McConnell said, we can't do it unless it's paid for. Now, when I say he said paid for, I'm talking about invested in, because all of this is an investment in the future. It's jobs immediately. It's promoting commerce, clean air, broadband, even infrastructure for our satellites, for so much of our economy that depends on precision farming even. So he understands what we need to do. He has to come up some ways to investments that will make it possible to pass. He needs it. That gives us leverage. And I'm happy to, I shouldn't ever use the word happy, but I would be delinquent if I didn't try to work with him to get something done for the American people. But you think he's serious
about getting it done?
I do, because he needs it. He has nothing. What does he have to call a tax bill that gave 83% of the benefits to the top 1% in our country? That's his accomplishment.
I mean, just to be the devil here, and there's a new Wall Street Journal poll out as we're talking, showing some improvement in his numbers around the economy.
Yeah.
And not the tax cut, as you said, it went to the wealthy, but the effect is not by the tax cut, but the economy is lifting the lower boats, and he can claim, I'm actually the president that's delivered the economy. Do you think he can make that case?
Well, I don't think so. I'll tell you why. Well, look, there are indicators, the test, and those indicators, he has something to brag about in them. But we put our hand on a very hot stove every weekend when we go home and listen to families, and even if their prospects are a little better than they were, they still have the fear and the memory of their homes being underwater, their pensions being at risk, their savings being used because they weren't making them. I don't think we've reached a level of prosperity in our country that is shared by so many of the families who have this financial instability. And let's hope that we do. I wish him well. We want our economy to succeed. But we can't say that because we did a tax bill that gave all the benefit to corporate America and the top 1%, and what did they do with it? They bought back their stock. That's one of the reasons the stock market is going up.
Nancy, you've been in politics or public life a long time. What would you want people, all of us get framed.
Yeah.
What would you like people to know that is not part of the image or the story about Nancy Pelosi? You've had 60 Minutes about you, etc. But what would you say, you know what, this is misunderstood about me. This is what I want people to know about me.
Well, since you're asking me now, I would want people to know that I'm a big sports fan. Now, that doesn't go to the heart of my...
We can get you tickets tonight to the Cubs if you want to go. If you're happy to, I can get that done.
I watch everything. I've watched all the basketball games. I was March Madness. I couldn't get to the TV.
What's your favorite sport?
Just whatever's the season.
Really?
Yeah, I'll probably go to a baseball game for Mother's Day. I don't think we'll have a basketball game that day. The
Right.
Warriors will have taken care of it by then. But no, my whole
Was that
thing,
because Tommy Sr. and Tommy Jr. and you just love sports growing up in your
probably,
home?
yeah. I have 5 older brothers, yeah, sports. But here's the thing, my why. I always say to people when they want to get involved, why? What is your purpose? What is your vision? What do you know about how do you want to get things done? My why is the 1 in 5 children live in poverty in America. That's what I get up in the morning, eat nails for breakfast, don a suit of armor, and go in there to fight them off for what they're going to do to children in
I
our
always used
country.
to tell President Obama first, I said, you'll find out she's more D'Alessandro than Pelosi, and that's all you got to know about her.
Yeah.
And
No,
I said, you don't
just-
have to, yes, you are your father and your mother's daughter.
It's all about the children. That's what I would want people to know.
Is that what you,
It's all about the children.
What are you reading right now?
I'm reading, well, I'm reading.
What did you just finish, if you are?
Well, I just finished something it's a little bit frivolous called Circe.
Mm-hmm.
It's about mythology. And that was to just change the subject from everything they're doing. But I'm just
You don't
reading.
think the Mueller report on DVD was that quite what you wanted?
I'll wait till that's made into a movie.
Yeah.
No, but
What are the 3 books you'd like to read right now, if you had a chance?
well, I have a number of them, but I love all of John Meacham's books. And he did
Really?
one about American values and who we are as a country, and that's what I just started. I love.
Did you read his book about Bush?
I did, yeah, I did. And I loved when he spoke at Mrs. Bush's funeral, Barbara Bush's funeral. He spoke so beautifully about her. And of course, any books that Doris
Kearns
Goodwin has written. I love American history. I have an insatiable appetite for books about American history.
I'm with you.
And that is it. So they're stacked up now because I have some that
I just finished a great book on becoming Lincoln, his early years before he becomes the president. It's really fascinating.
wasn't he just a miraculous
Talking about a person that the Times found.
The Times found him. What a beautiful man. I love reading about him. I love reading about Teddy Roosevelt.
What's your I was just last night we were talking. I said Teddy Roosevelt's quote about the person in the arena.
Is that the best quote anyway?
Best political quote there is.
Yeah. And you know what? I was to a funeral within the past year, and that was the big sign that they had up. It was the best.
Versus the critic on the sideline.
Yeah,
the person in the arena.
That's it.
I have it actually on my desk under the glass right in front.
And I'll just tell you one other one that I love.
Okay.
Abraham Lincoln.
What?
Public sentiment is everything. With it, you can accomplish almost anything. Without it, practically nothing. And that's what I'm depending on now to get many of our bills passed from the House to the Senate. Mitch McConnell has said that he's the Grim Reaper. He's going to kill all of our bills. Well, I want him to know that they're alive and well in the public arena and that the public will weigh in.
Did you ever think we'd have a nominating process that you'd have people that was, you got Mayor Pete, city of 100,000. Your dad's city was bigger than that. You have a congressman,
almost
3
1 million
terms.
people.
You have a couple members of Congress that have served 1 or 2 terms. That the history of being a governor or a senator, that's all. That the process has changed so much that, quote unquote, your background in politics is actually a non-starter. Did you ever think that would happen?
Well, anything is I just think it's about who connects. I mean, look, when with George W. Bush, I mean, that's, we'd like him to be president now, right? But he connected. We had great candidates, Al Gore, John Kerry, but George Bush connected. So it's a question of who connects. Authenticity is everything. And our candidates were authentic, but he came across more authentic.
Said, authenticity is everything. If you can't do that, fake it as best you can.
If you do that.
All right, now I happen to know from all the times I ate chocolate with you, we're going to do quick things. I brought you chocolate from our best makers here in Chicago. And since I know, they're dark also here. Voges, yeah. And I expected these to have prominence in the speaker's office. Not just I know there's a San Francisco maker of chocolate that will always be front and center. But on the off chance that you run out, We like Chicago to take a key role here.
Well, I'm glad you're giving these to me here because one time you sent me chocolate and they nuked it in the security check. So it's always best just
I
to
knew
hand
TSA
it
could
to
get
me.
one thing right. There it is. TSA finally got something right. They melted
Thank you
it
so
all.
much.
All right.
And no vouchers, you've
Right.
given me that before,
Yeah.
and I'll look forward to these as well. They look beautiful,
Right.
gourmet.
Yes, they're made here in
Margie's
Chicago. You're in the
candy.
confectionery.
Margie's candy.
You're in the confectionery capital of America here.
Thank you. Chocolate is my life.
I always knew when Nancy was eating a piece of dark chocolate, wisdom would come after that. Right? All right, I got to wrap it round. Ready?
I thought we were
no,
finished.
almost
I thought
done. No,
we were ending
this
on the
was
chocolate
Hanukkah.
note.
Yeah, no, here it is.
Thank you for the candy.
Yes.
The chocolate.
Cubs or Sox?
Oh, come on.
Yes, you can do it.
Please. Why
Pick.
would I do such a thing?
Well, everybody has to. All right, thick or thin pizza?
I like thin.
Okay, there you were quick on, okay? The Chicago Lake Michigan, or the Chicago River? You can't go wrong, just pick.
The lake.
Okay. The Sears Tower or the Hancock?
Oh, I don't have the faintest idea.
Okay. We have something, 12-inch softball or 16-inch softball? 12. All right, Nancy. I love you.
Oh, my goodness.
You know, we're going to have
My
to give
goodness.
Yeah, these are good and very important Chicago questions.
I thought you were going to ask me. Well,
Those are rapid round.
that was good. I enjoyed that. I learned a lot from that.
We're here with Speaker Nancy Pelosi, a dear friend, and somebody who's, I think, doing an incredible job leading the Democratic Party and hopefully to success in 2020.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I heard that question about the Cubs and the Sox presented to President Barack Obama.
Yeah, I know. Well, let me just say, there's a division in his home. As you all know, behind every good man, there's a strong woman, and I'll go with Mrs. Obama's view of with the sporting teams.
He was straightforward in his response.
Yes, he was.
And that's what we like about Barack Obama. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Go
Congratulations, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And thank you.
You've been listening to Chicago Stories with Mayor Emanuel. You can subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts and tweet your guest ideas using #ShyStories. Thanks for listening.